What's up, guys? The Breadstick back here with the Shark for another episode of Down to the Wire. Um, we're gonna be talking about just basically we're gonna be talking about teams throughout this first 2 weeks of playoff or not playoffs, but of the NBA season and just our opinions on how they are doing. So we're gonna start off with two teams that basically, in our opinions, weren't really looked as high, but they are pretty high now. So those two teams will be the Knicks and the Cavs. So Dalton, which team do you want to talk about first?
Well, first off, let's talk about the Knicks because right now they're like fifth seed. No one expected them to get off to this hot start, in my opinion. I mean, I did not expect them to get off to this hot start. I mean, with Opie Toppy, with what they drafted this year, R.J. Barrett, Austin Rivers, and those guys. I mean, you expect everyone expected them to be not as good or down low, and now they're right up there. And it's crazy to think that they're a top 5 seed. But I mean, to be fair, it is still early in the season, so they actually did like earn their way because I remember they beat the Pacers, which they're right now first in the East. So that right there is crazy in itself. What about you?
No, yeah, I definitely agree. The Knicks, I just think they were a super young team that needs to figure it out, and I think they're starting to figure it out. Julius Randle has been playing out of his mind, almost like an MVP level caliber player. RJ Barrett has definitely figured out his momentum from last year because he didn't really have it. Elfrid Payton also found a little bit of momentum as well, and Mitchell Robinson still dominating the paint, which is why they're doing so well. But we also have to look at the fact that they are kind of playing. They played pretty good teams, which is really good. And yes, even though if it's only maybe 9 games in for them, if I'm looking at the losses that they've had, they've lost by 12 to the Thunder.
Okay.
Which is probably just an off night. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all had a pretty bad off night. They lost to the Raptors. So it looks like they're beating good quality teams, but they're losing to the bad teams, which doesn't make sense to me, but it's the Knicks, so it kind of makes sense. Like, it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so that's all I can really say about the Knicks, but the Cavs are also doing pretty well, too. But what I want to notice about the Cavs compared to the Knicks is that the Cavs have some veteran roles in their team. They have Kevin Love, Andre Drummond, JaVale McGee, Matthew Dellavedova, Larry Nance Jr., Dante Exum. Yeah, they have a lot of good older players and veterans to help them with that team compared to the Knicks, who have maybe their oldest player might be Elfrid Payton, which is not even saying a lot.
Even
what?
Because the Knicks is still a young team.
No, yeah, the Knicks are a very young team. The Cavs are not young, but they're not old. So that's a big thing that we need to look at. All right, so let's move on, just because there's not much else we need to really talk about them. They're just playing really well, but it is still very early. But the thing we have to notice is,
that's true.
Dalton, why do you think the East is so weak compared to the West?
Well, I mean, simply put, the West just has more firepower than the East. I mean, you look at the East. I mean, all you have is pretty much the Bucks who are who were down low, and now they rose their way back up. The same thing with the Nets. They're supposed to be at the two firepower teams. And then you have Boston, Philly, Indiana, and those people. And then all of a sudden you have a team like Knicks and Cavs that they're just weak. And then while in the West you have Lakers, Clippers, and pretty much. And I would also consider Dallas to be one of them. I mean, even though it's a little bit biased. I mean, that's just I still think Dallas it has a lot of firepower and also Houston, Denver, Utah. I mean, the list goes on in the West. and for the East, like you can only list so many. So that's the reason why the East is so weak, is because they don't have as much as firepower as the West does.
Because that's kind of what I like to notice is that I guess you could say it was a little bit more balanced back in the 90s. Because in the 90s, that's when Michael Jordan was playing. He had more of his tougher competition was in the East compared to LeBron's competition, which was in the West. But yeah, that's so let's talk about the West. There's no teams that are very surprising to me for right now. We had the Lakers up front with the Suns, because we all knew the Suns. I guess with the Suns, we kind of knew that they were going to be good, but we didn't think they were going to be this good. But then you have the Clippers, the Jazz, the Warriors, the Mavericks, the Spurs, the Trailblazers rounding it off for the playoffs. And then you have the Thunder and the Kings for the play-in spots. Nothing really too surprising. Maybe the Nuggets being not in contention at all, and the Rockets not being in contention. But yeah, I think probably James Harden's probably not playing to his full potential because he's looking for a trade. I think something must have happened to the Nuggets, and they're just not playing well at all right now. Then the Pelicans, they're not using Lonzo correctly. He's been playing a wing position when he needs to be playing the guard. He's been more of a catch and shoot rather than a point guard, because his best attribute is passing. And if he's not passing like a true point guard, then he's not going to be used correctly.
Yeah, and same thing with Ingram and Zion and those guys.
I think they're actually overplaying Ingram. I think that's what they're doing. Because he won MIP, so they're thinking he's going to be the next Durant, so they're trying to play him more and more like the Nets play Durant, but it's just not working out.
No.
Alright, so now we're going to bring back another segment. We're going to bring back underrated and overrated. So we're going to start with our opinions. So we're going to start with the Heat. So Dalton, do you think the Heat are underrated or overrated?
Okay. I think, in my opinion, they're underrated because if you look at their roster, their two big guys are Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. And then they have players like Goran Dragic, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson. I mean, with that team last year that went all the way to the finals, and they had a unique journey. I'm pretty sure they got by their first round opponent easily, and then they beat Giannis. They beat Giannis, I think they beat them in 5, which that's pretty impressive. And then they beat Boston. And then when Bam got that block on Jason Tatum, and then lost to the Lakers. But I mean, you have to give him a lot of props. I mean, you gotta give him credit where credit is due. And then Jimmy Butler rose up to the challenge and did what he could. And then whenever it came to the finals, they just fell apart. So for my answer, they're underrated. What about you?
All right, for me, I'm gonna say they're actually overrated and overhyped. Because I think just because they were able to beat the Bucks and whoever else they beat to get to the finals to lose to the Lakers in 5, they repped Tyler Hero and the rest of that Heat roster to be a top 4 team. Because last year we're 5 or 6. Yeah, they were 5th. They were 5th, and now they're 13th. I don't know, they're 11th, but they're still not in a playoff seeding position. So I think that's very. And people are like, don't sleep on the Heat, don't sleep on the Heat. Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's a great player, don't get me wrong. Quiet all-star, kind of like... Not like... He doesn't play like Kawhi Leonard, but he's a quiet superstar like Kawhi Leonard. Bam Adebayo is playing out of his mind, too. You have Duncan Robinson, who can shoot the ball well. You have Dragic... Goran Dragic, who is an excellent, phenomenal point guard for what he does to the team. But I just think there was so much hype off of Tyler Hero where it didn't give him enough time to completely form into a great player, and he's already getting the hype, and I think the pressure and the chip on his shoulder is getting to him. So I think that, and people are still like, don't sleep on the Heat, but they're 11th seed. They haven't proved themselves this year. Who have they played? They're playing the Wizards right now, and they're only up by 3. Then they lost to the Celtics. They beat the Heat. They beat the Thunder. They lost to the Mavs. They beat and lost the Bucks. They beat the Pelicans. They lost to the Magic, and that's it. So I think they've lost and won some, and I think they lost some games that they should have won, and they won some games they shouldn't have won. So I think, but people have been hyping them as a championship caliber team just because they were able to beat the Bucks in the playoffs. But if we look at it for like the past 3 years, the Bucks have been beaten by so many other teams.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the pressure is starting to get to them.
I think so too.
All right. So the next team that we have, I'm actually going to switch it up from our thing because I want to talk about them, is the Raptors.
Ooh, okay. So I think they're overrated. I mean, just because they won the title in 2019 with Kawhi Leonard beating Golden State. I mean, to be fair, the Warriors didn't have Durant or Clay, leaving Curry and Draymond defend for themselves. And then and Kawhi just took over. They beat Golden State in 6. But anyway, I mean, a lot of people doubted them whenever Kawhi left. I have to give them props. I mean, they did make second seed, and they did their job. And then even though they got knocked out in the playoffs, I mean, they still did good. I mean, a lot of people count them out, but now with them, like with them still having high expectations, I mean, right now they're not even in contention for playoffs. I mean, yes, they still have Pascal Siakam, Kyle Lowry, and Fred VanVleet, but with them losing Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka this offseason, which that hurt them a lot. Instead, they had to pick up Aaron Baines, which is an average at best player. So, I mean, I think with them, Toronto fans still have high expectations, but I don't think they're going to get it this year. So that's why I think they're overrated.
No, I definitely think they're overrated because I think they were rated correctly just at the wrong time because everybody thought that they were going to be super, super bad whenever Kawhi Leonard left, but they proved themselves to get the second seed, but then they lost, and now this season they're not even a top 10 seed. So that's what we have here. Yeah. All right, so we're going to move over to the west side now, and we've got the Jazz. So what do we have as the Jazz? Nash, get out of the scene!
I was trying to see. I pointed, and I was like, there he is. But anyway, that right there is a little shark. But anyway, moving on. I think the Jazz are a very underrated team. Only because, actually, I changed my mind. They're overrated because, they do have Donovan Mitchell, who was a star. Who was a star last year, did really good. And they also have Rudy Gobert. But, I mean, last year in the playoffs, I mean, they placed the Nuggets. They were up 3-1, and they blew a 3-1 lead. I mean, that right there in itself is pretty much overration at itself. And then with Utah now, I mean, they're doing good. I mean, what did you say they were, like fifth? Were they fifth or sixth seed?
I think they might be a 4 seed.
Oh, so I mean, even though they're doing good, I mean, just with them in their playoffs, I mean, with them like last year losing to Denver and in the past, and then 2018, 2019 losing to Rockets. I mean, I think with them their playoffs, I think with their playoff expectation, that's what gets them. Mm-hmm. They're overhyping it, and that's why they're overrated.
No, yeah, definitely. I think I'm gonna go opposite with you. I'm gonna go underrated just because I think that because Rudy Gobert is being so not overhyped, but he's being so overlooked right now. I think ever since his production value in that 3-1 3-1 lead, and then they lost all that, I think his production value has been very, very overlooked. and people are forgetting about how great of a defensive help he is and how great of a paint help he is for offense, because he's still a great player and he's still a former defensive player of the year. But I think ever since that 3-1 lead that they lost to the Nuggets, I think everybody turned all of their eyes and attention to the Nuggets and forgot about the Jazz. Because Donovan Mitchell's still a great player. You still have Joe Ingles. You still have Derek Favors, I think, right? Derek Favors. Is Derek Favors?
No, I think he's with the Pelicans.
Is he with the Pelicans now?
With the Pelicans?
No, he's still with the Jazz.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, I must be thinking of something else.
He used to play for the Pelicans, I think.
I think so too.
Let me check. No, he went to them last season, then went back to the Jazz.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. See that we can get you guys true facts because we're actually on our phones. No, but yeah, but then you have Bojanovic. Then you have Mike Conley's on the Jazz too. So they got another good point guard. Then you have Jordan Clarkson, Joe Ingles. Yeah, that's a good solid 6. Then you have Royce O'Neal, who's he might be an upcoming all-star if he goes to the East and he has a better chance of showing himself, because I think he's a good player.
I think so too.
All right, so we're going to round it off with our last team, and I'm actually going to switch it up because we did talk about them a little bit earlier. So
what do you got?
I'm going to go with the Kings.
The Kings?
Ooh.
With this one, they are very underrated as a team, 100%. I mean, they have Buddy Hield, De'Aaron Fox, who is a great point guard, extremely athletic, super fast. Harrison Barnes, Marvin Bagley, Hassan Whiteside. I mean, they definitely have a solid young core. I think the thing they lack is like leadership and because they don't have that many veterans. So I mean they definitely had high hopes going into the season, and then like honestly they fell off a little bit, but only because it's early, and they've been playing like harder teams now. So I mean they're very underrated. I mean just because of their young core. And they might have a shot of making playoffs. I mean, I think they're for sure going to make the play-in tournament. So, yeah, I think the Kings are very underrated.
I agree with you. I think De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield, Marvin Bagley, Tyrese, Whiteside, Barnes, Jabari Parker, Kyle Guy, Glenn Robinson, Corey Joseph, all those players have some sort of veteranship, or they're really good and really young, or they have championship winning abilities. But I just think also the West is so stacked that it's hard for them to even get a 6 to an 8 seed spot, which I think they honestly could deserve. But just because the West is so stacked, they aren't able to get that spot. But I think if you move them over to the East, maybe they would get that 5 through 8 spot. But I just think that they're so talented. They're so young too. And the only other difference is you can't have De'Aaron Fox being your number 1 guy. He's a good ball handler. All of his stats tier up every single season that he has played since entering the league in 2017-2018. But he's just not your number 1 guy, at least not yet. Maybe once he hits his peak, maybe he can be your number 1 guy. But from what his play style is like, it doesn't seem like... Because his play style is a John Wall 2.0 lefty style, or kind of an explosive Russell Westbrook because of his speed. But look at where John Wall and Russell Westbrook are now. John Wall is on the Rockets, and they're a bottom 10 seed or bottom 5 seed. And same with Russell Westbrook. They're both bottom 5 seeds. And they're not known as being a winner. They're both as being stat getters. Both really good players, don't get me wrong, but they're not known as championship caliber players. I think mainly the reason why the Thunder made it to the championship with Russell Westbrook was because of Kevin Durant.
For sure.
And I think with the debate about, if the Thunder stayed together, they would have been the greatest. No, they wouldn't have, because you have to look at it. Yes, you might still have the big three core of Russell Westbrook, Ibaka, and Durant that was still there. They didn't go back to the championship. They made it to the Western Conference Finals 3-1, still lost that to the Warriors. But James Harden wouldn't have been the player he is now if he didn't go to Houston, because he was playing a 6-man role. He wasn't going to be able to thrive as much as he was in Houston if he stayed in OKC.
For sure.
So I think people overlook that, and they're like, how good would this team be? Well, you got to think about what that team was back then. James Harden wasn't the starting shooting guard at that time. He was the 6th man. He won 6th man of the year, I'm pretty sure. If not, he did. So then he won 6th man of the year for being that type of player. If he was the 60 point a game per night, 30 points a game type of person that he is in Houston now, they wouldn't have won at all.
Because he would shoot them out the game.
Well, yeah, because the way that Houston's system runs through is they run through James Harden. The ball is in his hands most 90% of the game. Like after Durant left, the ball was in Westbrook's hands 90% of the game in that 2017 season. It's just there wouldn't be enough ball movement around for that team to be successful. The only reason the Warriors were so successful is because Curry and Klay Thompson are okay without having the ball in their hands 24/7. We had to actually change our structure from Kevin Durant having him being an ISO player to now Curry and Klay Thompson running around sharing the ball. That's why I think I listened to a little interview with De'Aaron Fox and Colin Cowherd, and they were talking about what happens when you match up with the Warriors, and they said with Kevin Durant, it's more of an ISO ball type game because Kevin Durant, you need to put the ball in his hands. But if you're playing the Warriors without Kevin Durant, there's a lot more ball movement because if you see they're popping more, Steph's running around taking 17 screens. Somehow Klay Thompson will get open, you pass the ball to him, he's going to shoot the lights out because that's his role. Draymond's going to bring the ball up the floor, get everybody the good shots that they need. That's just why I think the Warriors without Kevin Durant is a better rounded team, because they're not selfishly playing.
For sure.
Well, anyways, that's going to do it for this episode of Down to the Wire. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did enjoy, please leave a like, comment down below, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Once you do, you join the Ball Brothers, or what our group is. I don't know what our subscribers' names is.
I don't know.
We'll figure that out later. But yeah, stay tuned for episode 6. Or wait, this is 6. It would have been 6, yeah.
Oh, this is 5.
This is 5? Okay. Then yeah, stay tuned for episode 6. Alright, so we will see y'all later. Peace.